All right. Well, I'll go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Community Preservation Committee on July 25th, 2024 at 5:34 p.m. As you just heard, this meeting is being recorded by the Community Preservation Committee, and if anyone else is recording the meeting, you're required to let me know. Okay, we do have one recording. All right, so roll call for attendance here. Susan here, Wisty here, Donna here, Garth is not here, and he said he was not going to be here. David is also not here. Amy, I do not see Amy online. Becky and Travis are. We do have a quorum. We have 5. That's good. All right, so first on our agenda is our annual reorganization, since this is our first meeting in July. So we're going to be electing chair and vice chair. And if anyone would like to. Is somebody taking minutes? I already. Oh, yeah, minutes. All right. Remember who took minutes. Yeah. Misty? Sure. I see you got a piece of paper. I'll do it next time. I promise. Okay. Yeah, no, thank you. Okay, so we have election of chair and vice chair. And generally how we do this is we get nominations. We'll do each at a time nominations, and then we can, if there's more than one person, we can go around and say which person you're voting for, or if anyone wants to do a secret ballot, we can write it on pieces of paper. Election of chair. Would anyone want to be nominated for that position?
I would like to nominate Susan Wardell. Second.
All right, Susan. Will you accept the nomination?
To my general dismay.
Any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, we will vote on Susan as chair. So Wisty?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So chair. I'll go ahead and do the vice chair election for you.
Okay.
Get it out of the way. So then, vice chair.
I would like to nominate Tom.
I'll second that.
Okay. I'll be the vice chair.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing no other nominations, we will vote on Donna for vice chair. Susan?
Yes.
Misty?
Yes.
Becky? Donna?
Yes.
I also yes. So, congratulations, vice chair. Congratulations, chair, and free to take it away.
I would like you to. I would like you to do it for this meeting.
Continue for this
Continue
meeting.
for this meeting. I will take it for the next meeting.
Okay, I'll accept the responsibility. I do have the agenda.
Okay, that's good, but I don't.
Okay. So next on our agenda, we have a general public comment period. No discussion or comments will be entertained unless requested upon by the chairperson of the committee. And just to give everyone who's online or in person, Wisty, I just noticed Garth joined, so you might want to note that it's 5:38 right now. So just let everyone know, we're actually going to have a couple different public comment periods during this meeting. This first one is one that's on our agenda. It's on every agenda where people can bring up any issues related to CPC that they would like. Later, we're going to be having our public hearing. And during that public hearing is where we're asking for feedback on priorities and what you liked and didn't like about things that have been funded and what you want to, the types of projects you want to see funded going forward. So there will be a time for that in the public hearing, but if you have any other comments related to CPC that you'd like to bring up to us, that maybe we could add to an agenda for next time to talk about, this would be the time for that. So I will go ahead and open up to public comments, general public comments. Guessing most people are here for the public hearing part, so not seeing any public comments for a general public comment period. So we will move on from that. And the next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from June 27th, 2024.
Move that the minutes be accepted.
Motion to approve the minutes. Seconded. I don't know who got the second there. I think seconded by that. Any other discussion on the minutes? Okay. A general thank you to everyone who has taken minutes at these meetings, including Misty right now. All right. So hearing no other discussion on that, we'll vote on approving the minutes. And Garth is here now, so I need to remind myself. So go up there to Garth too. All right. So for approval of the minutes, Susan.
Yes.
Misty.
Yes.
Donna.
Yes.
Garth.
Yes.
All right. And Becky. Yes. And I don't think minutes are approved. Okay. So now we're on to our new business. So this is our public hearing portion. We're going to start with a presentation on Community Preservation Act in Greenfield. And this is kind of an overview of what it is, how we got here, the types of projects that have been funded in the past, what we've identified, what we've identified as like the priorities for the city. And then we'll be asking for input from the public to see if everyone else's views align with what we think they are. So give me a second to hook up and we'll do a little PowerPoint presentation. Oh, okay. Usually this process is a little smoother, but we've been having some technical. Okay. Community Preservation Act public hearing, July 25th, 2024. That is where we are.
Garth, can you hear us pretty clearly, by the way? Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so here's a little agenda for this presentation. Oh, hold on. Yeah, I'm getting audio on my computer. So we'll do a little welcome, introductions, an overview of the Community Preservation Act, projects that have been funded in Greenfield, a little bit about the plan that this group developed. We'll have a Q&A session, so if anyone has any questions, we can answer those at that time. During the public comment period for the public hearing, we're not really supposed to have a back and forth and respond to everyone. It's more just for us to listen. So we'll have a little Q&A first. Do you have any questions about? And then we'll do the public comment. So here are the members currently of the Community Preservation Committee. We have representatives from the Historical Commission, Conservation Commission, Recreation Commission, Planning Board, and then we have 2 city council appointees and 2 mayoral appointees. And right now we have a vacant housing. Hopefully we'll be filled. So the Community Preservation Act itself it's a state law that was passed in 2000, and it enables communities to raise funds and to create a local dedicated fund to do a lot of things, including build and rehabilitate parks, playgrounds, recreation fields, open space, support local affordable housing development, preserve historic buildings and historic resources, and a lot of other technical things that fit roughly into those categories. And Greenfield voters adopted CPA in November 2020. And the law enables us to enact between a 1% to 3% property tax surcharge on residential and commercial property owners. In Greenfield, we adopted a 1% property tax surcharge, and there are 2 exemptions in Greenfield also. The first $100,000 of residential and commercial property value is automatically exempt, and then also low-income households or low to moderate-income senior households. That one you need to apply for, so you can contact the assessor's office for more information on how to apply for that. In fiscal year 24, Greenfield raised approximately $260,000 in CPA revenue. The local CPA revenue is partially matched by the statewide Community Preservation Trust Fund, and that percentage changes each year based on how much money the state gets from their part and how many cities and towns have joined in. So that's kind of variable, and we haven't received the match on that fiscal year 24. But it's usually
November.
Yeah, November, and it's usually, I don't know, 15 to 40%, something like that. So us, this group, the Greenfield CPC, Community Preservation Committee, we have 3 responsibilities. 1, we study the community preservation needs, possibilities, and resources, and develop a community preservation plan. That's the plan that I talked about earlier. Then we review and recommend CPA projects to City Council and keep records and do reporting on CPA budgeting. So for the CPA budget, we're required each year to set aside at least 10% into each of 3 funds. The housing, open space, and recreation are combined into one fund, and then the historic fund. And then there's an administrative fund that we can put up to 5% in. And then everything else goes into a flexible fund that can be used for any of those categories. At the bottom is what we did for this year. We did 10% into open space and recreation, 10% into historic, 30% into housing, 5% in the administrative fund, and then the remaining 45% in the flexible fund. And in the past, we've done 10% in each of those categories. And this year, our plan identifies affordable housing as the #1 priority. So when we were setting aside the funding, we thought it was important to set aside more specifically into the housing fund. And once it goes into that fund, it has to be used on housing projects. And once it's in the open space and recreation, it has to be used on open space and recreation. The flexible fund is the only one that could be used for other things. And just a note, it seems like a lot, 5% going into the administrative fund, but we barely use any of that each year. And then what doesn't get used gets rolled over into the flexible fund for following years. So that money does get used for projects, the following year going forward. So this past year was the second year that CPA projects were funded in Greenfield, and we had $300,000 in available funding. We received over $1.4 million in requested funding, and these were 5 recreation projects, 4 historic projects, and 3 housing. And out of those, 6 projects got fully funded for the amount that they requested, and 2 projects were partially funded. So here's a look at the projects from last year that just got funded. This is what we recommended to City Council, and then City Council enacted that funding. So the ones in bold are projects that were fully funded. And then you can see what either got partial funding or no funding, depending on what. And when we're doing the Q&A session, if anyone wants me to go back in the presentation, I can go back to any of these slides. So this is how that breaks down into the different categories. $90,000 approximately went towards housing, 54,000 to historic, and then 155 to recreation, for a total of 300,000. And so this was just this past year, but that's the second year we've done it. So for the 2 years combined, this is where the funding has gone. $190,000 into housing, 102 into historic, and 342,000. So to date, 3 of the projects that have been funded are totally complete. 7 projects are in progress, and 8 projects from this past year will be receiving their funding soon once the grant agreements and everything are worked out. And if you see any work going on around the city and you see one of these signs, that means Community Preservation Act funding went towards that project. This is one of the uses of our administrative funds. We printed these signs and then give them to people, and then they give them back and we reuse them. So I'm just going to go through the ones that are complete now. The Franklin County Fairgrounds barn roof restoration. This project was partially funded with about $31,000 in CPA money. The bocce courts and Beacon Field drinking fountains, that was also partially funded with about $75,000 in CPA money, and is also now complete. And the Shattuck Park Fitness Cluster, that project was fully funded. All the funding came from CPA money, $24,000, and is also complete. So moving on from the project, as I said, one of our goals, or one of our responsibilities, is to create a community preservation plan. And I won't read all of this, but as it says, the purpose of the plan, basically we come up with all the processes for how all the application process works, and we look at the needs of the community and sort of synthesize that together into a plan of the types of projects we think are most important to fund going forward. And just a little overview on the types of projects that are eligible. I was going to say this looks very simple. It also kind of looks complicated, but each of these wordings has a specific legal meaning, like acquire, create, preserve, support, rehabilitate. So it is a little bit complicated on what can be funded, but for example, I was just going to pick one on the fly here. Recreation, rehabilitate, any projects that's rehabilitating an existing recreation field, that is a yes. Open space, acquire, let's say there's a parcel of land and someone wants to buy it and permanently preserve it as conservation land, that is also a yes. So this is like our master table of what's allowed. So in our plan, these are some of the guiding principles that we set out. We decided that we would like to advance projects with high or multiple community benefits. So, if there's a project that's going to create affordable housing and preserve a bunch of open space, like that would be multiple benefits. We want to prioritize urgent projects. We had a little discussion on this in our last meeting, but projects that seem to have more immediate needs in the community. We want to maximize fund leveraging, so projects that can use CPA money and use that to apply for other grants and multiply and, get more funding. That's a really good use of CPA money. And also, we really try to ensure the maintenance of CPA funded investments. So, asking a lot of questions about how things are going to be maintained and making sure that that public benefit continues going forward. So the priorities that we've identified, so these are what we see as the main needs in Greenfield as it relates to Community Preservation Act funding. The number one thing that we identified is the creation of further housing opportunities in the city. Community Preservation Act funding can be used for affordable housing for people up to 100% of the area median income. We have funded, or partially at least, multiple projects in that area. We also want to make sure we further climate resilience and or improve physical access to or quality of the city's current open space. One example of this is this past year, we provided funding to shade structure. Hillside Park, sorry, the name slipped my mind. Hillside Park, a shade structure at the splash pad, as summers are getting hotter, these areas to cool down are even more important, and having a shade structure nearby. So if you're not in the water, you're not right in the direct sunlight. That's an example that fits into that category. We also want to make sure we actively preserve and enhance the cultural, architectural, and environmental heritage of our community, and increase access to outdoor public recreation. So here's a little overview. I think I updated this for this year of the project approval process. In August each year, there's an announcement that goes out about how much funding is available and requesting pre-applications be submitted for projects. September 16th, pre-applications are due. The pre-application is a very simple form where you just say what your project is and which category it's in, and then we review those and make sure they actually do qualify for CPA funding. We make sure it fits in that chart somewhere in a yes. And if it doesn't, then we say, sorry, you can't submit a full application. That's what the pre-application is for. So then September to October, the committee is going to be meeting with applicants to discuss the status of the pre-application. This year, we've talked about doing a more in-depth in-person event to try to help people work through the full application and make sure all the information that we want to see is in there, just to help people out with that part. And then November 15th, full applications are due. And then from there, we're reviewing the full applications, meeting with applicants as needed. And then in March, approximately, we would be voting on project recommendations to City Council. Sometime between April and June, City Council would consider those recommendations and vote on them. And then the ones that get approved by City Council, those people will be notified of the award. And then there's a grant agreement process to work out with the city at that point. So sometime July, approximately, or August, they should be getting their funding. So at this point, before we get to the public hearing portion where we're going to sit here quietly and you're going to tell us all the types of projects that you want to see, and if there's anything we've overlooked in our plan or anything like that.
Will this be available to the public on our website?
This presentation?
Yeah. People would have access to the details.
Yeah, the recording of this will be available. I think we posted the presentation.
Yeah, we did.
So yeah, we can post the presentation. So anyway, as I was saying, before we get to the part where we just sit here and listen, if anyone has any questions that They have about CPA, how it works, what do I do about this, why do you do this, things like that. Now would be the time to do that. So, yeah.
Can I just say one thing? The matrix that you see there, the acquire, create, preserve, that's state mandated. It's not something that we decided. So we can talk to you about what the definitions are, but in terms of, can we change this? No. This is part of the law, the state law that gives the CPA its reason for being. So just so you understand where we can do stuff and where we can't.
Yeah. Okay. So if anyone has any questions, I'll look in person and see if there are any hands up. And yeah, if you can come up to the table just because this phone is our microphone right now.
My name is Rebecca Todd. I'm the Executive Director of the Connecticut River Conservancy. Thank you so much for all the work that you do. Some sort of procedural questions. Are there any constraints on the number of applications that one can put before the committee?
We haven't set any constraints with that. We've just left it open, you know, as we said, we've gotten over $1 million in requests for $300,000. So then it's just a process of sort of whittling it down. And I think when we have had multiple from like the recreation department, for example, and we try to find out, like, of the ones that you gave us, what do you think is most important, you know? Like, so like if you submitted 5, we would probably ask you which of these 5 is most important. Yeah.
Great. And then when you make your recommendation to the city council, can you share what your track record has been? Has the city council said, wonderful work, CPC, we accept everything as you've recommended it, or has the city council differed from your opinion?
I believe all of them have been approved.
I do ask questions. And maybe when we go before Ways and Means, they will ask, you know, well, why does this make sense? That kind of thing. And we're, you know, we have to go and explain, but they will differ.
Yes.
Do the people who made the application also go?
They don't.
We're representing them.
I mean, they could, but
They could.
really it's our recommendation that they're.
Great. And in the application process, are there, do you provide any hints for what you want to see in an application, or what has proven successful, or what would be helpful for the committee?
Yeah, so one thing that we try to add to our presentation for next year, we do have a scoring rubric that we score all the projects on, and that's available on our webpage, so you can see exactly how we score projects, so you can make sure you like get all those points. But we don't just go by what scores highest, because we also do a lot of public outreach, and we sort of weigh how we score things versus how the public has expressed which projects they want to see funded. So it's kind of both of those things.
Yes, how does the public express its preferences?
So later, once we know what the projects are and we've met with everyone, got our questions answered, we have another meeting where people can come and tell us in person, and then we also send out a survey where they can go through every single project and rate it, like, this is important to me, 1 to 5, this is important to Greenfield, 1 to 5, they can leave comments. And we've gotten really good feedback on this survey that we send out. And we try to post flyers everywhere, getting people, you know, sending out emails. The city posts it on social media. So the applicants usually send it to people that, you know, they know would like their project. So
does the survey go to every citizen in Greenfield?
It's available.
Or it's available, but it's
yeah.
a self-selecting group of people who actually.
Yeah. It's
Got
just
it.
an online. So we try to get the link out as many places as possible and hope people will.
For instance, it's more than Greenfield because when we did the Franklin County, the routes for the Franklin County fairgrounds, we have a lot of people from other parts because the county, it's a county, it's in Greenfield, but it's a county project. And so we have a lot of people from elsewhere who have a stake in having those roofs repaired. And so we receive that kind of feedback. And we weigh that. Let me just say, we try to weigh that. Sometimes we put out our rubric, what we think, and we're totally different than what the community thinks. And we weigh all of that and try to figure that out. It's not a, it's not a guarantee in any direction. And it's been interesting. It's been an interesting process.
And
Yeah, I suspect, yeah.
And through the whole process, there are several meetings that public can come in. So let's say you were presenting something, you might have other people out there who are in support of you, who speak up, and we really listen. So those kinds of experiences are important to us and have an effect.
Okay. Right.
And there's no guarantee.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, got that.
Right, so far we have spent all the money each year. We're not required to do that. We can like roll over stuff. But we have always received much more in requests than we have funding for. There's part of that is just because nobody has any money. And, part of that is because Greenfield doesn't fund any recreation things, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So it's, we take like other feedback into account. But it's not a slam dunk if 400 people fill out the form, you manage to get it out and the entire pickleball world wants Greenfield to have 5 more pickleball courts. We're still going to weigh that against, the rest of our plan and projects and stuff like that.
Thanks. And if anyone didn't hear that first part, he was saying that we aren't required to spend or, to recommend all of the funding be used in each year, but we have so far. So, yeah. Go ahead.
And one other thing is some already we've experienced that people have come back the second year. They learned about the process and about what they kind of needed to do to have the application be more fitting to all the requirements and stuff.
Yep.
And so even if you don't receive it the first year, you might come back the second year.
And I would add that projects can be multi-phase. So sometimes, you might have a big project that you're bringing forth, but because we don't have a lot of money, one of our questions is, what if you're not fully funded? And then you can take a look at, well, what is the first step that we could take with a lesser amount of money to get the project off the ground and then come back later, the subsequent year?
Right, because I'm new to this process, so I'm learning with you. Can someone make an application that says something along the lines of, I have a 3-year plan, and in this first year, I'm asking for this amount of money for the first year of the plan?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But there's no guarantee they're
No
going to get the
guarantee,
second
but-
year or the
Or
third.
even the first year.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, I wish we had more money. If we had
Yeah.
more money, we could do more stuff. But the fact is that, and we often have projects that come that, could eat the whole thing right away. And
Yeah.
so it's a question of, do we want to partially fund something? Do we want to fully fund something? Because then we know.
Maybe we lost audio.
Garth, can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay, I guess we're using my computer now for the audio. Now we're having even more technical issues. I don't know.
So, yeah,
Oh,
community and economic development is muted.
yeah, the microphone in here doesn't work.
Ah, magic.
So, yeah, you joined late. All right, I see Francoise has a hand up if you'd like to unmute and ask your question.
Yes, hi. My reference was from 63 Washington Street. Just a clarifying question. I see under open space, it says no to rehabilitate and or restore. And my question is, what if would management of an open space, of a parcel that's open space, would managing it, would that be allowed or not? And by managing, I mean, well, maybe some trees need to be cut or maybe trails need to be maintained, something like that.
Yeah, so unfortunately so the open space is like specifically for like conservation land as opposed to like recreation land. So for those parcels, the work that you described would only be allowed if CPA funding was used originally to preserve that land. So like conservation land in town, we can't, if it's existing conservation land, we can't use CPA funding to rehabilitate, yeah, do like invasive plant removal or, anything like that. Just because it wasn't first acquired. It used to be that way for recreation too. You used to not be able to do anything on existing recreation land. And then they went back and amended the law to allow work on existing recreation land. It used to be it was only for preserving new open space and preserving new recreation land.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yep. All right, anyone else in person have a question? And if you do, if you could come up and now I guess we're using my computer as the microphone.
Hi, I'm James Fortin, pickleball enthusiast. I saw that we're on the list for projects, but do we have to reapply ever?
Yeah, so that list was from last year. And so if funding is going to be requested again, you would need to reapply. Yeah.
Each year?
Yeah.
And then,
Yes.
okay, good to know. And then another one was, I just learned that this can be sort of regional and we have it named up there as Greenfield pickleball courts, but really maybe more appropriately it could be Franklin County pickleball courts. I don't know if that
I
would
think,
draw more.
I don't know if that would help.
Right.
I think that the question is, who are you doing this for? Who's going to most benefit from it? And how does that impact generally Greenfield? The reason that we did something regional is because the Franklin County Fairgrounds is here in Greenfield. And by the way, we did not fully fund their efforts because we felt that other communities should also be involved in that process. So depending on how you frame it and what you think who you think is going to benefit, you may benefit from a regional approach, you may not. It really depends on what you're doing this for. And very honestly, I think personally, keeping it as a Greenfield project will benefit you more. But that's my personal take. And if I saw something in the proposal, I could change that. But we're really our money is to primarily support the development of the residents and the city of Greenfield.
Okay, the only reason I mentioned
Yeah.
this is because we get a lot of people from
Mhm.
outside of town. Greenfield,
Right.
Right.
And that number
Right.
seems to be
Right.
growing.
I guess the question would be then, how does that benefit this community?
Good question.
And those people can fill out the surveys.
Yes.
Like,
Absolutely.
once we develop the survey where people can rate the project, if you know of a mailing list of people who are interested, you can send it to them. Even if they're not in Greenfield, there's a spot to fill in like what town you live in.
Okay.
And I was speaking earlier about sometimes things get phased because we don't have a lot of money. So for instance, You can see last year that pickleball was not funded. However, the year before, it was funded at $50,000. And I think the ask was like 300,000 in 23. And,
It's higher than-
I think it was higher, I think it was like 6.
okay. So anyway, we obviously didn't have that. We didn't even have that much in our whole budget. However, we did fund like the study and the design and the plans. So that was completed in 2023.
And I think that's where that came from. The number.
The number from that, yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, during the town rec meeting, there was some, federal funding that's an 80-20. So there's some grants out there, I suppose, is the way they explained it, that we have to bring some
Right.
capital and then look at some
Right,
capital.
yeah,
But
probably,
it's pretty substantial.
probably a park grant,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the other question is, if we move, when this begins to move forward, which hopefully it will in that percentage that gets allocated for recreation, can that roll, would the intent be, let's say that, will that roll over till we get to an actionable amount or how does that?
I think in terms of what let's say it's a federal grant that you're getting. Or it's a park grant, which is a state grant. If that grant requires 10%, let's argue. If the 50,000 that we've given you originally would be able to be applied to that. And if you came in and said, we need $10,000 more in order to reach that amount, that would be something we could consider. Okay, if it was, we need $300,000, probably couldn't do that because that's how much money we generally have.
I think my question now is, let's just use the 300. Will that always be unattainable and this will just be sort of always a dream, or can we chip away and save towards it? I guess is my question. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, we can't put money away for multiple years. That is something we're allowed to do, but most of the towns who do that have millions of dollars that they've got available to them each year. We've got so little available to us, I would not count on that. That doesn't mean it can't happen, but it's.
Basically,
and people kind of plan for each
yeah, I mean, basically, in order to have funding roll over each year to build up for one project, so far we would have to be denying projects that are ready to go.
Right.
So
Okay,
that's why we've been putting money.
So rough numbers, if we're talking 300,000 from the last fiscal, that's in there 10% for recreation. So, well, let's say 30,000. And let's just say for round numbers, the state says we got an 80-20 match. You need to get to 100,000 from the town, and that's us. Will we, how do we get to that? I mean, I know we're gonna.
One suggestion I would have, okay, you've already gotten 50,000 in CPA funds for feasibility study. You'll say you need 100,000. You can come to us and say, we need the rest of the money. We probably will not give you all of it, but then you can go to the capital planning for the city as a whole and say, they'll give us another 20 if you'll give us another 30.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's that kind of building process. And you may be able to go to a foundation. You may be able to, I think, you and Christy really need to sit down and do some strategizing. And I worked on developing the skate park, so I've been through this. I've been through this.
We can work for it.
You can work toward it, but you may want to do some fundraisers that show that there's community, involvement and interest. I mean, we raised $30,000 for the skate park. It was a drop in the bucket for what we needed, but it showed community involvement. So there may be a number of things that you and Christy want to talk about to build the case. You're building the case.
Okay, and I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
One of the thoughts is because we're at the private fundraising stage, and some of the people that during conversations are worried that the question is, well, what if we fund this and support this, and then it never reaches a critical mass where it goes anywhere, and then we've got, say, whatever the investment was, whether it be monetary or just time and energy. So that was one of the thoughts. So, but good to know that it'll build.
So
Yeah, welcome to
One of the
municipal
things is-
funding.
To talk with Christie too, because Christie's putting in applications for things more than pickleball. All right, so you're partly competing against other recreation applications. And so, you know, I mean, you just have a lot of people to talk with to figure out what the priorities are. And, you know, it's up to Christie. Is she gonna put all of her recreation back, you know, interest? That's right.
Yeah.
So,
Pickleball is in capital, but it's not in capital. It's in our capital plan, but it's not in capital for a couple of years. We have some other things before that. And, yeah, the skate park, I mean, there was money sitting in that account for years.
We worked 11 years.
I started being treasurer of the Friends in, I think, 2018, and there was that $30,000. And we didn't write the check for it until last year, so. But it was always good to have, because then you're showing that you have match.
Okay.
And that really makes people feel like, okay, they've got skin in the game. So we know that they're serious about moving forward with it.
And I just wanted to clarify, technically, the amount available to recreation is 10% plus the 45%, because the 45% can be used for anything. So if we wanted to, we could do 55% towards recreation.
What we have is a minimum of 10% that must go to recreation.
Yeah.
And then the 45%.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. That matters.
Yeah.
And then one other question around the matrix that you showed, if you could see the next slide.
Yeah.
What is the bit about, so under support for recreation? No, what is that?
Yeah, what is
I
support
think
called?
it's
Staffing,
maintenance stuff,
yeah. We could fund if you acquired a basketball court, we could fund get the acquisition of the basketball court. If you came to us for a net, we can't fund it.
Okay.
It gets
We
very.
couldn't pay like a city staff person to be.
Referees or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay, that's what I'm.
This is much more of, this was written much more as an acquisition of property and capital improvement than it was
Right.
as an event
Okay.
process.
And then also the land has to be city land.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very much.
All right,
I appreciate it.
thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions in person? This is good. We're getting some good.
Yeah.
You had a question.
Yeah.
Okay, hi, I'm Sam Stegman. I'm with the Connecticut River Conservancy. We're well represented here. We own and inhabit the 15 Bank Road, beautiful brick building across the street. We've been rehabilitating that historic building for at least 20 years, right? At least 20. And we have some plans to do more of that. And so I have two, I think, hopefully easy questions. One is, do you do site visits as part of this process?
We haven't, but we could. So far for historic projects, we've been getting a lot of pictures and, you know, engineering drawings about what the work is gonna be, things like that.
Okay. My second question is, if it's a multi-year project, if we're looking at 3-4 years, would it be best in this year's application to spell out the whole project and the cost of that in multiple phases that we might be applying for in future years, other phases of, or is it better to just stick to the kind of fiscal year?
If you have a plan, tell us
Share
what
the
it
whole
is.
plan.
Share the whole plan. We can't guarantee that if you give us a 5-year plan, and we can maybe fund year 1, we can't guarantee we're gonna fund the rest of the 4 years.
Sure.
Right.
But knowing that you've got a plan says to us, okay, we put in the small amount of money, you've got a use for it, you've got a plan for it. That gives us, it's more positive than if we say, if you give us you give us a small plan and it doesn't look like it's gonna go anywhere.
And then we specify an ask amount for the
Yeah,
fiscal year.
absolutely,
So we're
right.
saying, here's the 3-year plan, it's got this budget, here's the 1-year version of that
Right.
budget, and here's what we're asking for. which is a
Exactly.
portion of that.
Exactly.
Right.
And you tell us where you expect the other money for this year to come from. Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
Sam, your very first question, did it have to do more with like historical preservation parts?
Yeah, it's just fun to
Okay.
walk around and show
Yeah.
people the building.
Yeah, and partly if you came with something about that,
Yeah.
you would be going through the historical commission
We
and
would.
they would recommend to us whether they accept that.
Well, it depends.
Whether-
Either the building has to be on the state registry of historic places,
Which it is.
or the historic commission has to approve, or has to say that the thing has significance to the history of Greenfield. So if it is on the state historic registry, then you don't have to. Historic commission.
If it is on the state register, we don't have to go through the historic.
Yes.
We just come to you with an application.
Yeah, I mean, you can
have-
ask them.
We're
for,
going
like,
to
a
them anyway.
recommendation.
Yeah.
but that,
Their
yeah.
report is good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's good to have, yeah, that's the other thing is we'd like to see that there's community involvement, that there are letters of support, that, you know, folks, that there, it's more than just, I have this great idea.
Yeah.
And I want to do this and everybody likes it.
Yeah.
Because that's not enough in competing against other projects.
That's fine.
And
Thanks.
one thing I wanted to add about the multi-year thing, how many years do they have with the grant agreement? So once the grant agreement gets signed, you then have 3 years to spend that money.
Okay.
So even if, you know, if your phased plan, just to let you know somehow, if that works into your phased plan in a certain way.
Okay.
You would have multiple years to spend the money
Mhm.
before the grant agreement.
But if you want to come back to us,
You gotta-
you gotta spend the money that you've already got.
That part's easy.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Can you ask for money to help you make money?
What do you mean?
I mean, can you say, I have this great plan to raise funds, but I need to be able to pay for these things so that I can raise the funds? Like if you give
I
me
think that would be
that's,
support.
That's support.
okay.
So
So that would work for,
housing.
for housing only.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's usually on housing, it's usually a feasibility plan and we funded one of those this year. Where they have to figure out, can we build this thing? You know, do we need borings in the
yeah,
land to make sure that it'll hold the structure? Do we need, you know, it's really a pre-plan. But that's.
I think there are very specific housing support things
Yeah.
like rent assistance.
Mhm. Oh, yeah,
falls under
right.
Mhm.
And that can be used for housing.
Right.
okay.
And we also actually can help with mortgage stuff too.
Yeah.
But we've got so little money that's unlikely, just to be honest. It is our number one, but often we're looking at really creating new housing.
Any other questions in person? Any questions online? Okay, not hearing any more. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. Oh, okay. So, not hearing any more questions, so we'll go to our public comment period. This is where we want to hear what you think the priorities are. Well, I have some lists here. What types of CPA projects are most important to the people of Greenfield? You can see the categories on the left side there: historic, housing, open space, recreation. How would you rank? These are some ideas of what you could tell us. How would you rank the 4 categories? Like, do you think housing, then recreation, then historic, then open space, or maybe the other way around? And would you like to see the funding distributed similar to fiscal year 24, or would you like to see more towards one category versus another? Those are just some examples of things that we want to hear, so we can use your input as the projects come in and we start evaluating those as to which projects we think we should fund. So if anyone would like to come up, anyone in person would like to come up and give any input on the types of projects they want to see this upcoming year? Yeah, come on.
And I'm only, so thinking about this, and you know, if somebody needs a place to live and somebody needs a place to play, I think it's pretty clear who gets the priority. So how do you make a determination about whether you're funding? I don't know why money would go anywhere other than housing if that were the case. If everything was equal, it would all be housing. So how do we figure out, you know, how do we line these things up to be realistic and, you know?
We spend a lot of time talking about it. First of all, that's part of the reason that we have the 10%, and we decided to go for 30% with the housing. So for instance.
I think, yeah.
Oh, we
technically in
can't,
a
yeah,
public hearing,
yeah,
we're not supposed to
we're
be
not
like-
supposed to do that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So this
So,
would be more
I don't
of a
know what I
Q&A.
I see.
But
Well, I guess then I'm just making I'm just trying to figure out in my own head, how does play compare to housing? I don't know how you guys deal with that, but I appreciate all the conversations you're having around it.
Oh, yeah, if you could just, since this is part of the public hearing, if you could just give your name and address, just to go with your
Okay.
testimony.
My name is James Fortin. I live at 24 Donnell Road.
All right, thank you, thanks. All right, anyone else? Anyone in person? Oh, yeah, come on up. Give us your name, address, and, let us know.
Hi, I'm Sarah Brown. I'm at 112 Stone Farm Lane in Greenfield. And I think it makes sense, the prioritizing that's happening. And just wanted to make a specific plug for Community Land Trust because I feel like they do housing, open space, and recreation well. And I'm here representing Valley Community Land Trust and Valley Housing Co-op. And Suzanne's also Valley Community Land Trust. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Melissa Webb. I was here when you decided to fund some things last round. I just want to say that I really appreciate all your thought and process that you put into stuff. And I guess for my public comment, one thing I really found interesting when I was listening to it last time was saying when we see people put in effort, it makes us want to put in effort. I see a lot of people here today wondering how do we construct our applications to be more appealing for this board, and it was really nice to say like how you decided. It was, I think, who is affected the most is a really good way to look at things, and I find that you very much looked at it how it's going to affect our whole community and not just individuals, and I really appreciate that. And I like how it was broken up. I do like the 30% to housing and the 10 and the 10 to the other two. And I think it wouldn't even be bad. I think having the more flexible spending was nice because you were able to spread the money differently and not try to get to that 30% or that 10% or it just watching the whole process happen. I don't know how to explain it, but it was like, okay, how do we get to this 30, but still, and again, making sure things are funded when they come in as a taxpayer. I want to see my money at work. I don't want to see my money sit in the bank for a year, 2 years, 3 years. I want to see change happening. So thank you very much.
Yeah, come on.
All right, so I just have a question. My name is Tina Riddell. I live at 5 Cypress Street in Greenfield. Talking about the pickleball courts and it's under recreation. How does that fall under like Christy Moore's recreation department? Isn't that a citywide park? So if we were to do a fundraising committee outside of not going through the rec department, but funding just for like to get the blacktop repaved, you know what I mean? Things like that keep it in the existing place that we currently have it, because there is a lot of people that go there, and young and old, you know what I mean? There's all ages and all, like 6:30 in the morning, people are there. So if we were to write a proposal, but not going through the rec department, but on our own as a committee, would that be allowed? Like, does it have to go through the recreation department? Because it's city property. It's not the recreation department's property. So I was just curious how that works.
Yeah.
Because you're saying that the recreation department obviously puts in for multiple projects because they have multiple projects in different areas. But if we wanted to work together as a committee of people that play at the park, is that allowed?
I'm just gonna answer the question just
Yeah.
because it's.
Well,
like a
I'm just
a
saying that
process
Yeah,
question.
no.
Whoever owns the property has to be at least a co-applicant on it.
Okay.
So.
So it's
Recreation
city-
Department.
Well, it's actually city property.
Yeah.
It's not the recreation department.
Yes.
It's city property. So I would have to get somebody from the city, like
Mhm.
DPW or some, you know what I mean? And get them on board with this. If
Whoever's
we
in
were to
charge-
go
whoever's in
outside,
charge.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for your time. I gotta go though.
Anyone else in person or anyone online? Yeah, go ahead online.
Yes, my name is Mike Reddick. I live at 91 Ferrante Avenue. And I wanted to thank you for the time you've given us explaining how you go through this process. I am a pickleball advocate, and I respect a lot of the work that's been done by the Recreation Department, and I'm supportive of their goals. However, I'm seeing within the mandate of the Community Preservation Act, the fact that we can use or we can apply to have funds to preserve existing facilities and rehabilitate existing facilities. Also, the kind of improvements that were done at Hillside, wonderful improvements. We could use shade at the existing facility down at Green River Park. I intend to work with people in the pickleball community and really hope to work with the rec department because one of the things, if we are indeed supporting the rec department for their goal of building a new complex at another location, they're asking us to do fundraising. One of the ways we do fundraising is we take care of our pickleball community. And one of the ways we do that is we have good nets and balls that are available, and we welcome people to play, and we build our community. That gives us a base from which to do fundraising, where we can help the rec department for some of their goals. But as part of that, I'm going to be working with people in our pickleball community to propose an application to rehabilitate and preserve and work with the existing facility that we have. And that's my comment as far as the kind of funding that I would like to see. I do appreciate the fact that this funding is available to improve hiking trails, to do the improvements that were done at Hillside. And I'll be working with people in the pickleball community to ask for that kind of funding for the existing Green River Park facility. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And if I know that was kind of quiet in the room, but this is being recorded and the video will be available online too. So if anyone can't hear what's going on online, you'll be able to hear it on the video as well. I saw Mary.
Hi, this is Mary Chigwin. I live at 254 Davis Street. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. I would say my top two, and I apologize, I came in late, so I missed your presentation. I might follow up with some written comments, but I just wanted to comment that my top two priorities for funding are open space, housing, specifically regarding open space, acquisition of important properties that protect our natural resources. I think we live here in New England and think we have an unending abundance of natural resources that just somehow magically spring out of the ground. But I think with climate change and degradation of our natural resources, we need to do what we can to protect those areas that are most critical. In terms of housing, I fully support you funding housing as well, but I would urge you to entertain project proposals that contain large numbers of universally accessible units. I think continuing to build housing just for able-bodied people is short-sighted. And I think that providing universally accessible housing includes all of us. We're all going to get old. We're all going to have challenges with mobility, and it only makes sense to design universally accessible housing. And just tagging along with that comment, when recreation facilities are funded, I would love to make sure that they are fully accessible where appropriate. Obviously, a trail that goes across Rocky Ridge would be hard to do so, but other ones are much easier to do so. And I would also like to see the recreation facilities that are being built out be located where people can walk or bike to them rather than in the outlying parts of the community. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in person? Yeah, come on up.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Hale. I actually live up in Coleraine, but I'm treasurer for a nonprofit that's based in Greenfield, Valley Community Red Cross. And I just wanted to say that, I guess two things. One is I would love to see climate considered in all of the different parts, not just in one category. And I guess three things. I'm just really impressed by how you all think. So I just wanted to say that I really, I trust this committee, having listened to you all today. And I guess the third thing is, I guess I'm just thinking about creativity and models, and putting a priority on things that could be used elsewhere, and where creative ideas stretches abundance. Yeah, I think there are lots of different ways that can be applied. Well, I've seen that happen where, you have a project that can be funded in one way, but if you, I'm saying this very well, but if you add creativity, it really stretches the money. I can't express this very well, but I was part of a project that did that in South Africa, and yeah, and it really generated a lot of excitement and healing because of the whoosh of creativity that came in and involving community. So that's kind of vague, but thank you for your work.
Thank you. Anyone else in person? Anyone else online? Mary, I see you have your hand up still. I'm assuming that is a holdover.
Okay.
All right.
If there's no one else, I just like to.
Sure. Okay, go ahead and close the. Okay, so if there's no one else, we'll go ahead and close the public comment period for the public hearing. And go ahead.
I'd just like to say that, the universal design ideas, the ideas around conservation, around, various kinds of public goods that we think are part of this. We don't write the proposals, you do. And so the more that you can show us that you've been thinking about these things, the better the proposal is in terms that we can look at. We can't tell you, we can prioritize some of those things, but we can't tell you what to put in them. And so if you have, if your building, you want to make it more physically accessible to people, and you want to do that within a historical preservation model, tell us about that. If, or if you're conserving something that you don't think anybody realizes needs conserving, tell us about that, because we will, your project, we don't. What we're going to do is look at it in relation to all the other projects we have and try to figure it out so that we make the best use of the money that you give us. And so the more that you can make it the project that you want to see, the happier we're going to be. So just to keep that in mind as you think about these various things, because that's important to us too. And Thank you for the comments about trust. And what I want to say is we really listen to you. And we work hard to try to figure out how to get this kind of input that you have given us tonight. So I want to assure you that just your presence tonight and what you've asked, and it's going to affect decisions that we're going to make this year. So it's really, really important. I want to thank people for being here. And that's it. Thanks.
All right, thanks. So we do have a couple other things on our agenda for tonight. I know we have 15 minutes left, so I don't know if we're gonna,
Can you tell us how to get the video? Because
yes,
It's posted on the Greenfield Community Television too,
and also on their website.
on
GCTV's website. Yeah. And then eventually it'll be on the city's website for the CPC page.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so next on our agenda, we have discuss updating the community preservation plan. I'm not, was there anything specific?
So I think it's just like discussing how you're gonna go about updating it. Because I think the way to go is you've heard a lot of feedback tonight. There's still an opportunity for written feedback until August 1st. And so at that point, you can all synthesize it and see and review the current version of plan last year and see if there's anything that needs to get updated in it.
Okay.
So does that mean that we're going to publicize, like let the public know that we want input from them, or like?
I guess we're doing that right now.
I know, but I mean, in addition.
Yeah, well, I guess we should mention, if people have additional comments, they can email you, I assume. Email Christian. You can find his email address on the CPC's webpage, so you can email him through August 1st. If you're watching this video on YouTube and you didn't make it to the meeting, or if you go home after the meeting and you think, oh, I should have said this, feel free to.
And it will like be in the newspaper or something? Otherwise, it's just people in the know who get to know.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
This meeting, like all the publicity about it was about updating the plan, and it was on the city website, on the city Facebook. It was like a press release I showed up in the newspaper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we will possibly get some more comments, and so we're not going to be updating the plan tonight, but I guess then our homework is to maybe look through the plan and see if there's anything that we need to update. We did make it fiscal year 23 through 28 plan. So if there are no updates, then we don't have to update it, but if we think we can, then if we think we should, then we can.
Just also, I mean, we do have someone from the reporter here, right? So maybe there will be a article in the paper tomorrow.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Okay.
Before August 1st. So there you go.
Hold that August 1st.
All right. So then we do have some old business tonight. Discuss and finalize CPA processes for fiscal year 25. We've been talking about this for 3 meetings now.
And it doesn't seem like it's.
And it doesn't seem like there's enough time to really get through it all.
Right. I think would be the best thing to do would be to still only hold one meeting in August, but move it up to after the August 1st date, maybe. I don't remember.
Early in August.
Yeah, either the 1st or 2nd week of August. 2nd week of August.
So August 8th.
And that way you could discuss updates to the plan and finalize your processes, and we could get out the applications before. We want to give people like a month, so you want to get it out before the 6th. So
August 8th.
Yeah. I will say I'm going to be traveling that week, so.
Can we, did we actually complete the updates to the application and to the?
We haven't made it
I feel
through the
like-
scoring
yeah,
yet.
the scoring.
Yeah,
what I
that's
thought.
the new thing.
So that's, yeah. That's.
So that could be basically our whole next meeting.
Yeah, that's a pretty important.
Because that would be before applications are coming in.
Right.
And yeah, we could talk about any updates to the plan and then.
That will make that a major.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll be up to Susan to keep us on track for that meeting.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Same time, same time, 5:30.
I mean, we can, if we don't want to definitively set it tonight, we could try to do like a doodle poll or something among ourselves before then.
For the date?
Yeah, unless everyone thinks August 8th should work for them, 5:30 to 7. Garth, does that work for you? Looks like he's thinking.
Yes.
That should be okay. I'm
Alright,
away
yeah.
on the 22nd, so it certainly works better than that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I'm gonna
You're
be
not gonna be
traveling.
here.
on
You're
that
gonna
day.
be here. You're gonna be here.
Dave.
Well, yeah, we'll have to, we'll have to.
Yes, I will be.
Okay, so that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4. We need at
That's
least
like,
one
that's
more.
in 2 weeks.
And 5. We've got
Yeah.
5. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got it. We've got a form. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Then let's do the 8th.
Okay. So, yeah.
Can he here? You think?
What?
Here?
This room.
Oh, let me check. I think almost.
Yeah, we can do it on Zoom if we have to.
So the requirement for that meeting would be to read through
So
what is the current.
The plan,
6:30.
and then we'll finish with going through the application and the scoring that we were doing the past 2 meetings.
And all of that is available currently online on the CPA.
yeah,
The old version, yeah, the last year's version. Okay, so so next on our agenda, review CPC project updates. Are there any updates to talk about right now?
No super significant updates. Working on getting grant agreements signed with the most recent round of projects. And then I think every project that got completed for the last meeting, so there's no
Okay,
really.
okay.
Any updates on the Tim Grader cornice thing that got discussed around?
Oh, yeah, so, he's thinking, his team is, considering whether or not to accept the CPA funding, based on what we decided, based off the decision.
Just, if that kind of a thing happens, that puts money back into the coffers, that grant that rolls over into.
It just wouldn't come out, basically.
Yeah, it would.
But it would make it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So we have
have
$20,000 next year that we had planned to spend this year.
Right.
It was 20,000 for.
There was a cornice restoration, so like the part of the building right up at the top. He's doing a historical restoration of that part of the building on Main Street. I don't remember what building, but
And then the quote came in lower than expected from the contractor, so he might not need the CPA funding to conduct the project.
yeah.
So, and the CPA decided at their last meeting to require him to spend his own funding first before touching the CPA, so he really might not need the CPA funding.
Yeah, and so that's I guess a kind of an example of how the process works. And once it gets to the grant funding process, even if we've recommended it and city council approved it, if they don't want to sign the grant agreement, then the money just never comes out, and then that money rolls over for next year. So because the projects are almost all get reimbursed. They spend the money and then they get reimbursed by us. So if they never sign the grant agreement, they're never submitting receipts to get reimbursed, so the money never actually comes out.
Yeah, and the pool of money for this CPC, it doesn't get rolled over to city council or anything. It just stays here.
Yep. Yeah. It never goes into the general fund.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So if we're not going to be discussing any of the updates tonight, then that's the end of our agenda, with the next meeting being August 8th, 2024, 5:30 p.m. in the City Hall meeting room.
It might have to be on
or Zoom, depending on.
Okay, and that also means that then the usual one that we have later in the month, we're not having 2 next.
No, yeah, that one shouldn't be necessary.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn that was seconded. We will do a roll call vote on adjourning. Susan?
Yes.
Whitty?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Garth?
Yes.
Becky?
Yep.
And I'm a yes.